this computer. Okay, so thank you all for coming. We have Dr. Niña Tamayo with us tonight. She and some of her team, I think, she and her team have put together a manual to help us travel. So tonight she's here to speak with us about that and how to prep for our wheel adventures, whether we're going somewhere locally, a little bit farther away as a road trip, or if we're flying somewhere. So Dr. Tamayo, thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invite. I see some familiar faces. Hi, Pam. Nice to see you again. One of my co-writers is actually on, Erin. She is one of the recreational therapists down at Edwin Shaw. She actually helped with the manual. So I want this to be as interactive as possible. So please tell me like what your thoughts are. I don't want to be sitting here just lecturing to you because believe it or not, you probably all know more than I do when it comes to traveling, either with a wheelchair or, you know, obviously with a spinal cord injury. So I'm also here to learn from you. The big thing today that I'm going to try to do is, you know, kind of cover some of the background of what we did. And then walk you through, you know, the steps of how to be successful as an SCI traveler. Obviously, things have changed because of COVID. So we're going to talk about community staycations as well, or just community outings. And then, yeah, we'll end it with some Q&A today. So I'm just going to share my screen, if I can figure that out. Hold on. Here we go. Wait, is it this one? Yes. Okay. How do I? Oh. Okay. Can you guys see my PowerPoint? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So today we're going to be talking about accessible travel, how to prep for your wheel adventures locally and beyond. That's just some stuff that I do on the side. So, oh, it doesn't let me advance. Okay, wait, nope. There we go. That's just there for, you know, if anybody's interested, but so I'm trying to make this as light as possible. So this is our agenda for tonight. We'll go through some background stuff and some pretty pictures. I'll kind of have you go through sort of an imagination exercise. I wasn't sure exactly, you know, what the levels of injury everybody has. So obviously things may or may not apply. But, you know, please speak up, you know, if during the conversation session. So we're going to go through some philosophical questions, as I like to say it, sort of, but really they kind of are, because, you know, I think it forces us to think about our world and how this world is not made for people with disabilities, and we have to kind of adjust to it. And then, of course, you know, why are we even talking about travel when there's the COVID and monkeypox apocalypse right now? Does it really make sense? And I kind of go through sort of what my reasoning is and why it's so important to talk about it. And then we'll go through some of the stuff we already know. We'll try to breeze through that, you know, barriers to travel, a lot of it that you all already have familiarity with. And then the last few sections is obviously what you all came here to listen to me talk about. So the Rehab Collaborative Network, that's the name I like to, you know, call my group, and the American Spinal Injury Association, who I'm very grateful towards, because they sponsored us writing this manual for all of you. So I'll go through, you know, some tips and tricks of how to plan your travel, how to deal with some of those challenges, and hopefully to inspire you even to just get out into your community. Because for me, as a spinal cord injury doctor, that is probably the most important thing that I would want you all to take away from this. You can do it. It is possible. I think it just takes a lot of time. And as you all know, there's no spontaneity to traveling with spinal cord injury. But I think with the right amount of research and the right amount of preparation, I think it's very much worth it. So like I said, we'll end with a little Q&A. Okay, here's our imagination exercise. Can you guys imagine going to any of these places in a wheelchair? I want to see everybody's. How can I see that? Oh, no, I can't do that. No, you can't imagine it? I'm seeing a lot of head shaking this way. Okay, I've got one head shaking. Yes. Meg, I see you. Okay. All right. So, okay, what about, oops, these places? This is all in the US. What do we think? Yes? No? Can we get a thumbs up? Yep, okay. We got a thumbs up. Pam, Jill, okay, what are your thoughts? Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. Greg, what do you think? We got a shrug? Maybe? Okay. All right. Well, what if I told you it was highly possible to go to all of these places despite whatever your injuries are? But let's go through a few more questions, okay? So the reason why I kind of took this on was I started asking questions myself, as I was going through fellowship. And the first thing was like, how do we really define travel for people with disabilities? Do you only think of it as international or domestic travel? What about travel within the community? Because that's really the question that changed during COVID. We had to relook at what we were doing as a group and start looking at it with COVID as sort of the background. So travel became more about community integration, right? Which is sort of the next question. Have you guys had any conversations about integrating back into the community as travel with your physicians and therapists? Has that happened at any point in your journey, like in terms of transitioning to home? In your time from, acute rehab to home, or if you're in a skilled nursing facility, or if you go from skilled nursing facility to home, has that conversation ever happened? If you can think back, can you guys think about that? Is that something that's come up? Have they told you how to integrate back into the community? Like, how am I going to get to the grocery store? Or how am I going to get to the movie theater? Or if I wanted to go to a restaurant, how am I going to do that now that I'm in a wheelchair? Have you guys had any successful or good memories as far as that's concerned?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I started something called the Gerson, the Benjamin S. Gerson Family Resource Center, exactly for that purpose, to help people who are inpatient reintegrate into the community. So
that's wonderful.
Yes, I believe in that.
That's great. What about the others? Have you guys had, okay, Kay's shaking her head no. Nope, Greg is a no. Who else? I can't see everybody in the screen. Meg is shaking her head as well. Okay. So I think for me, that was what really became important as to why it was sort of our why in terms of why we were going to write this manual, because we want, as healthcare physicians, therapists, we want you to go back to the community. We want you to use the resources that are out there and help you all to prepare for it. And then I think one of the other questions I wanted to ask was, how long did it take all of you to leave your house after your injury? And how many of you were encouraged to go out, into your community, but again, not really telling you or explaining how you were going to do that? Do you guys generally go out? Is that something we can do now? How often do you guys go out now as a group? Meg, I know you go out. She's a great example of what, go. Oh, that's right. And I'm so sorry. Congratulations. I completely forgot to start this, my lecture with a congratulations to Meg. I don't know if everybody knows, but let's flash that ring. You got it on?
Yeah, this guy proposed to me a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're very
well, and that all happened because she went out kayaking. So, right?
Yeah.
What about the others? How often do you guys go out into the community? Let's talk about right now. Do you go out pretty often?
As often as possible.
Okay. How about, do you guys go once a week, twice a week? What do you think?
I try to get out a couple times a week.
Good. That's good. Okay, Greg, how often do you guys go out?
Just the doctor's appointments.
Just the doctor's appointments? Okay. Anybody else want to chime in? No,
I
Jill?
go out as much as possible.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. What about Julie and Rhonda?
Well, I'm retired now, so I go out less than I used to when I was younger. Now it's like, it's more fun. It's hard work if I do it too much.
Mm, okay.
So once or twice a week, I'll go somewhere.
Okay. And when you first got your injury, about how long did it take for you all to finally leave your house to go exploring? Can you guys remember that?
As soon as I could manage in a wheelchair.
Okay. How long do you think that took, Jill?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. How about anybody else?
A couple of weeks.
Okay.
A couple months.
Okay.
Couple months.
Couple months. Anybody take longer than 6 months to finally leave? And that I don't want to count doctor's appointments, but like to actually go out and have fun in the community. Did it take about 6 months?
Yeah.
No.
No? Okay.
No.
So less than this is a pretty active group then. That's good.
Mhm.
Okay. Did anybody take a year?
Almost a year.
Almost a year. Okay. All right. So these are the questions that were in my mind. And when I started looking at resources during fellowship, I think United Spinal had a fantastic set of resources. And then I think there were a few other organizations that kind of talked about this, but I don't think there was, or at least I felt at that time, there wasn't like a fully comprehensive set of resources that actually walked you through step by step. They'll send you the resources to kind of look into, but sometimes it might, like the links might not work, or like the organization's no longer there. But to actually tell you and hold your hand through, going out or going on vacation, I didn't see that. There was a lot of bloggers that did it, bloggers, like social media. There's a lot of, the millennial age. I think they started kind of picking up on it. And started using social media to kind of disseminate some of this information, but they're all disparate resources. So for me, what was important is kind of having one place, that, taught them not just, okay, here are the places that you can go, but how to do it. Okay. So this is sort of a continuation of the previous slide, but I think a lot of you end up having to just figure things out, right? And again, it's I see a nod from Kay, a very adamant nod.
Yes.
And then it is a real struggle, because you don't have anybody to kind of walk you through if something happens to your wheelchair, or let's say you do want to go to the grocery store and you don't know how to get transportation. A lot of that is incumbent upon you to figure it out. And with already, sort of a lack of resources out there, can be really frustrating. So a few of my other questions I just wanted to put out there. Have any of you gone on vacation outside of your state since your injury?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Oh, that's good. Okay. Who else? Anybody else? I can't see everybody's screens. Ooh, Julie's got her hand up. Okay, good.
I went to Florida.
Very good. Okay. Who else out of state?
Yeah, I've been a few places.
Yes. Have any of you not gone on vacation since your injury? I see Jill is saying something, but I don't know if she's muted, I think. Jill, you're muted. There.
Okay, no, I have not gone on vacation in
Okay.
in
a long time. What would you say is your biggest barrier to going on vacation? What stops you from going? And this can be for anybody too. What stops you guys?
I think worrying about how it's, do I need ramps? Those kinds of things.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else?
I have a comment on that topic.
Sure.
Ironically, I found travel easier decades ago because there were not high beds in hotels.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't even have to second guess it.
Right.
And about 20 years ago, they started putting those raised hotels, and they made what were kind of essentially accessible rooms inaccessible.
Mm.
So that's my hard part now. And if you do where you're just going on the road, I don't want to do that anymore, because you can't just stop at a hotel and know you'll be able to get a room,
Mm-hmm.
that you can use.
Right. Yeah.
Some of the
very
things
true.
that they say are handicap accessible really aren't.
Yep.
Correct.
A bathroom that has, a tub in it, and you have to get into the tub to take a shower.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
not handicap accessible, really.
Correct. Yes, that's so true. And actually, I have a couple of slides. I think I included in this, but I did a small study looking at how accessibility features are actually presented in a website. And because of COVID, we didn't get to do the next step of it, which was to see if what they say on their website is actually true. Because we've heard so many horror stories from people with spinal cord injury, or strokes, or TBIs, and they or even actually just the geriatric population in general. And they couldn't find like an accessible room, even though it was marketed as such. And of course, again, you guys talked about the bathroom. I have a friend from the VA who had shown pictures of bathrooms that were not accessible at all. And there was like a lip that they had to go over, or like the chair couldn't fit the shower chair, or there were no grab bars, even though they said they had grab bars. So there's a lot of problems that are still out there. And it is very prohibitive for all of you to go out, because like you said, like who wants to deal with that, right? And our manual actually, our hope is that you can use the manual and the questions that we provide in the manual to educate the tourism industry in terms of what you all need. Because the more of you go out and the more of you, sort of advocate for yourself and kind of be that annoying person, to say, this is what I need. This is what my colleagues need. This is what my friends need. I think they'll start picking up, the clue that they need to market to this group of people. So we can kind of move on from that. So again, why are we talking about travel in the time of COVID? So the biggest thing for me is, as I mentioned, I really want to teach all of you to advocate for yourself within your respective communities, but especially the travel industry. If we let this be a barrier, they're never going to learn, right? They're never going to learn who we are as people. And I say we because, I actually consider myself, I am not in a wheelchair, but I am 4'10". So, even just grabbing things from, like cabinets and things like that. Like right now I'm in Wisconsin and I'm staying in a hotel, and I can't reach the towel like holder. It is very tough for me. Or even like some of the kitchen appliances, like I can't reach. So I have very similar problems. And so I can relate from that, regard. But I really think, part of the conversation that needs to be had is not just within our communities, within the spinal cord injury community, but really having that dialogue with industry and policymakers. And I think by doing that, we can help them increase their understanding of what we need, and really change national policies as well as international tourism. We're very lucky here in the United States because we have laws that help protect our rights for people with disabilities, but it's not the same, across the globe. If you go to Africa or certain parts of Asia, it just doesn't exist. So, I think part of that, part of what I would like my patients and my friends and my colleagues, I want them to do is go out there and, tell them, what you need. And again, it's sort of pushing the world into this more universally designed world. I do think it is possible, and really improving accessibility and helping others sort of understand our challenges and the barriers that we face on a daily basis. And then hopefully if we change things and so that everything's universally designed, our disabilities are no longer seen as disabilities. And that's really my hope. So that's the philosophical component of all of this. And of course, we really do have to prepare for a post-COVID world too. I think part of this is now we got this monkeypox deal, which I don't know what's going on. But I think my reason for doing this is also educating you all to be safe as you travel. So that's part of the reason why I continued with the work and really pushed for getting this manual to you. So. Okay, so this is just like some of the background stuff we already kind of know. And again, also a reason why, we kind of talk about why we should be interested in this. And honestly, the idea of becoming travel active is really an extension of rehab. And it is focusing on that idea of community integration and promotion of independence. And I don't want you all to feel like you can't do anything and you just want to be stuck at home. Even though it is hard, I think, the things that are worth it in life are the hard things. And so, we all collectively should, do this as a community, like I said, to teach the tourism industry to anticipate our needs. And truly, when I looked at all the research and asked and sort of the research asked, like, what do people with disabilities want to do? Well, you all want to travel. You don't want to be stuck at home. You all want to do things. And I'm not just saying like, okay, I'm going to go to Paris or to Germany or to Asia, but you just want to go to the movies or you want to go have a nice meal with your families. And like I said, that idea of community integration is travel. So it's really important for us to sort of understand both the psychosocial and environmental factors that, sort of challenge us and sort of stop us from going out. And again, some of the other statistics is pretty dire. This is one of the reasons why I asked you all at the very beginning, how many of you have gone out? Like, what's your normal weekly activity? Most people with disabilities travel only 1 to 2 times every couple years. And for the spinal cord injury population, they say that travel is actually the most disrupted social activity, with only 4% of people really taking part in this leisure activity. And then the National Spinal Cord Injury Statistics Center reported that 38% of people with spinal cord injury had not even spent a night away from their home in the past year. And of which 25% didn't even get out of the house even once a week. So from a quality of life perspective, that makes me really sad, because that's not what we want. We want you to be successful, community members. We want you to be part of all the activities that are out there for everybody else. And you compare that to able-bodied Americans, and they took an average of 5 to 6 overnight trips or one-way trips to places that were 50 plus miles away. So there's a real, discrepancy between able-bodied and, people with disabilities. I'd love to change that statistic. And part of the reason is because what most people don't understand is that the value you all have as a target market is actually huge. 26 million Americans with disabilities spent $35 billion over 2 years in travel, but the true economic impact is close to 70 billion. So like, they're not really paying attention to that. And you guys are actually a really important group. And you should keep going out so that you can be, you can represent your friends and your colleagues who are in the same boat. And it's really interesting because the United Nations World Tourism Organization did a study, and it showed that people with disabilities were more likely to travel during the off season, because obviously crowds, kind of a problem, right? And I've heard a lot of my patients and a lot of my colleagues who are in wheelchairs say, yeah, I can't stand being in crowds because everybody's so rude and they cut me off. And like, it's a lot of angst that they feel. So there's this whole market that's not being tapped. So I think you all should know that and try to, get out there as much as possible. And in addition, there's really this golden opportunity for the tourism sector to grow, and, hopefully inspire them to make or create more accessible accommodations. Like, for example, this is not like necessarily a personal plug, but I would love to create, and it's sort of in the works, but I would love to create sort of like and I think I'm pretty sure I told Meg this, but like an Airbnb for people with disabilities. So if you guys wanted to go travel with your family, you create a space that is completely universally designed, and you can go have fun, with your loved ones, and that is available for you, so there's definitely a market that can be tapped. So where do I fall into all of this? Again, this is sort of the background stuff, and I kind of touched on this. It really started when I was a fellow. I'm a traveler myself. I love to travel. I'm the type of person who has a go bag in her car. And if somebody asks me, do you want to go left or right, Niña? Like, I'm ready. So like I have clothes for winter, summer, all that kind of stuff. So I love to travel. And I think when I was going through fellowship and I realized not a lot of my patients won't be able to do that, I really tried to understand what the barriers of to travel were and what resources were specifically there for spinal cord injury patients. And again, the motivation was, how do we get all of you to get out into the community, increase your travel experiences? How can we improve your travel preparedness? And especially for the people who are fresh injuries, who might be scared and just not know what to sort of do and anticipate challenges. This whole project was really created for them. And then obviously too, there's, again, I kind of talked about like the anxiety or the angst that's sort of associated with preparing for just leaving your house. That's a lot to deal with, especially when there's so much unknown, and you don't know what's going to happen to your chair, or if it's, like there's environmental challenges, where you go. And I think, part of it is also teaching you all how to deal and cope with that stress and that anxiety. And again, I've mentioned it before, just how do we get the tourism industry to just get it? Because they just don't, and it sucks. So this is sort of the start of the travel project, and this was the bare bones of what the manual is now. So it's actually under edits, or they're editing it right now. I sent all my last edits back in July, so this is the cover. So yes, I've had multiple glasses since I started this. It's been 5 years, and it's like boggling my mind that it's actually here. So I'm very proud of this, and I'm very proud of my co-authors who helped me with this. And so this is sort of a sneak peek of the table of contents, and I'm going to give you guys sort of highlights. I'm not going to obviously have time to present everything, but the idea is to help you guys prepare for travel, right? So it's set up in a way where it walks you through that. So this is what we're going to talk about. This is what you guys came to hear, right? So we're going to do like a little breakdown. We're going to start with the basics and then kind of talk about, I think the most important part of traveling is really your equipment, preparing your equipment for transport. I think there's a lot of headaches and a lot of heartache. And actually I have a few recent articles that I found about people's wheelchairs being broken by like Delta Airlines. And I think they gave the guy air travel vouchers, but didn't care about, replacing his chair, which to me is mind boggling. And I think that is part of the anxiety of traveling. So, we'll talk about all that and how to try as much as possible to prevent any injury to your chair. And we'll talk about booking your hotel, planning your outings. And again, I don't know where everybody is in terms of their spinal cord injury. So, if there's something really specific to you, please, feel free to speak up and I can try to answer any of your questions. And then, the community adventures is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Going on a staycation, or if you're like, after all this, and I talk to you, you're like, who is this person? She doesn't understand what I'm going through. And this is just too much for me. So I think the goal there is to just start small, take baby steps, go out to the park, go out to dinner with a friend, those kinds of things. So let us move on. Okay, the basics. So the first thing is, I cannot stress this enough. Like, you should know your rights. I mean, these are just a couple of the resources that I have. Obviously, United Spinal has a wealth of resources when it comes to this. But this slide was actually taken from a previous talk where it was a little bit more international. So I just included this. The United Nations has a website that tells you whether or not that country or other countries besides the US signed the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, because if they have, then it's more likely that they will have some laws for people with disabilities. And then the DREDF, founded in 1979, it's the Civil Rights Law and Policy Center, directed by people with disabilities and the parents who have children with disabilities. And their goal is to really train and educate people and about the rights under state and federal disability rights laws. And even though they're based in the US, their work is actually global. So they have a great number of resources. If you are, again, this was taken from, an international talk, but if you are thinking about going internationally, or if you're at that stage where you're considering it, you want to start here and sort of research the country you want to visit. Because even though, we have the ADA and ACAA, which is the American Carrier, I'm messing that up, Air Carrier Access Act. Some countries have an equivalent to that. So it just might be a little bit different or slightly modified. So you should know about those kinds of laws. So that's where I would start. Just know your rights, know the disability laws here in the US. The ADA is a huge law. I'm not saying like become a lawyer or something, but definitely know the specifics that are kind of specific to you. So if you do go to a restaurant and you can see that it's clearly not accessible, you have that in your back pocket and you can advocate for yourself right then and there. And say, well, the law says you're supposed to have, at least an accessible bathroom available for me. Or, well, the law says like I should be able to, enter into your restaurant, or you have some reasonable modifications so I can get in. And again, the more we have those conversations, I think the more things will change. So this is actually, I forgot I actually put the old version of the packing checklist. So the manual does not have this version of the packing checklist. This was the original packing checklist we made back in 2017. Yes, 2017. So this was actually created by some of my colleagues at the VA in Northeast Ohio. And we collaborated together to create this packing checklist because honestly, the next step after knowing your rights is really knowing what you need. I know Meg has posted on her Instagram and TikTok when she does travel, she's presented how she packs her stuff, and everybody's going to have their own packing checklist. So again, part of this is just knowing yourself. What do you need? Part of having a stress-free vacation is being able to anticipate your own needs, right? I think part of it too is, and this is why we kind of talk about the community staycations or community outings. If, again, this whole list just makes you super nervous, you can start small and you have a go bag where you might pack, your most essential items. And part of this checklist too, it wants you to know your equipment, like know the parts of your chair, know what batteries you need. I talk about taking pictures and labeling them, especially if you're going on a plane, and providing instructions, especially if that chair of yours is going to be checked in. And I think part of the headache that we can avoid is a lot of the articles out there right now is, okay, all these airlines are destroying chairs, but part of it is we're not also doing our due diligence and educating them on how to handle our equipment. That is an extension of ourselves. So if you give them written, descriptions of what they should do or what they shouldn't do, they're hopefully, they'll be smart enough to read it. Of course, it's not guaranteed that it's still not going to get destroyed, but it's one more step that we can take. The sucky part is that the onus is on us to do it. And again, part of me talking about this is like, the more we do it, the more things will change. And then the last bit is, and I do talk about this later too, is just knowing how to troubleshoot. Knowing the parts of your chair well enough, and having conversations with your vendor or your therapist so that you can put together, maybe a small emergency kit if something goes wrong. So keep that in the back of your mind. And then booking your trip. So I kind of mentioned earlier, we did a little research on, I think we did 64 hotels in Manhattan, and we looked at all the accessibility features that each of those hotels put on their website. And this is not a promo or, necessarily in an ad. And it just so happens that I'm also staying in a Hilton right now. But Hilton ended up having the most number of accessibility features. But again, does it prove to be true? That's the part we don't quite know. But Wyndham didn't say anything on their website. Of the 64 hotels we looked at, Wyndham sort of scored at the bottom. But how we kind of did this was this chart on the left that you see. And I walk you through how to find the accessibility features of hotels using different search engines. So you can use whatever search engine you like, and it tells you, okay, this is where you find the features, and you can click what you're looking for. And again, part of this, the manual, which I don't actually show on here, is we have like tables of questions upon questions upon questions, and it's really to help guide you into how to communicate with hotels, or even airlines, train companies, or even car companies if you're trying to rent a vehicle, and also the attractions that you're going to, restaurants, music venues. So like, for example, if any of you are going to Blossom, that would be a great way to practice asking questions. And I'm sure though, like, you probably have your own section, but it would be helpful to just start having those conversations and ask them, hi, I have this kind of wheelchair. Do you have, a section for, people with disabilities? Like, what are there ramps for me to get there? Is it easy to get there? Are there extra fees that, you might charge? Or the other thing is, if I bring a companion, do they get a free ticket? So there are, what do you call, perks that some places might provide. So you want to build your set of questions based on your needs as somebody with a spinal cord injury. So you're the only person who knows what kind of bathroom you're going to need and what kind of bathroom will fit your wheelchair. So make sure you know the measurements of your chair or any of your other equipment. And then if you're asking or booking for a hotel, again, we talked about it, ask for the layout of the hotel, ask for pictures. Ask them, hey, you need to prove to me that the room that you're going to give me is actually accessible. So, I kind of talk about that a little bit later too. But the main thing is, you want to make sure that wherever you're going to go is, it's accessible enough for you. And you can compare the accessibility features, hotel to hotel. Some other things that you might want to consider when you're planning is there are specialized travel companies now to help people plan travel. And Wheel the World is actually the, I think, most popular one right now. They were actually the first ones that I think planned a trip to Machu Picchu for people with disabilities. So they actually carried the wheelchairs across the mountain for some of their clients. It is a very scary thought, but they made it happen. And so now they've actually expanded to other parts of the world, like Morocco. I just looked at this last night. Morocco, other places in the Caribbean. So if you're up for an adventure, I feel like Meg would do this. I feel like that would be like one of your, trips. They would be a great company to, contact. Another resource that I really like is Curb Free with Corey Lee. He doesn't have a spinal cord injury, but he has muscular dystrophy, and he is in a power wheelchair, and he's traveled to I don't know how many countries in his chair, and he actually has his own company where he takes other people with disabilities with him. So he's got a trip being planned for 2023. I'm not exactly sure where he's going, but I know it's happening. So, just some other things that you want to consider. I have a few other, these are the accessible tour companies you might want to check out. This is being recorded so you guys can see this. But yeah, Access Able is another one. Spin the Globe, I've actually talked to them. That's Curb Free with Corey Lee, Wheel the World. So these are here for your leisure. And then, of course, if you are planning anything, the big thing now is, social media, TikTok, Instagram. There's tons of travel bloggers out there with wheelchairs. And these are just some of the websites I definitely look at and watch. Again, Corey Lee is up there. I think he's great. So use that. Or, if you're not used to use it, you're not used to looking for social media stuff, ask your family. So they probably are, will know where to look for that kind of information. And then I actually just included this for, I can't actually say that word, but something and giggles. And this is actually the app study that my group did. So if you are looking to help yourself travel around the world, there are so many travel apps that are actually available. The interesting thing is it depends on the phone that you have, what pops up. We found that Apple actually has a little bit more specific, a more specific algorithm for mobility impairment, based travel apps versus Google Play. And then the one in the middle is the shared, apps that they have. So again, we got to stage one, we found the apps, but then, COVID happened and we couldn't test it. So, we're looking to kind of revive some of these projects, or at least I am. And this is already a couple years old, so there are probably more apps that are out there. So it'd be really interesting to see sort of a repeat of this study. So that's there for you guys as well. And then, of course, having contingency plans. We already talked about, not having spontaneity with a spinal cord injury and travel. So, just make sure that, you are flexible. Be flexible, have a lot of time when you travel. Consider like these things that I kind of mentioned here, like having a repair kit with you. Again, troubleshooting before you leave and talking to your vendors and therapists about your chair or your equipment. What if your luggage doesn't get to you? What do? Well, consider sending some of your equipment ahead of time. I actually know a few friends, actually, who's a business traveler who was in a power wheelchair, also had a companion, and he would send his equipment ahead of time. And always make sure that if you are, going to be on a plane or a train, or you don't see your luggage and somehow it gets lost, like you need to have something on your person. So have a go bag. Having at least a week's worth of supplies, like for bowel and bladder, for example. You could also consider renting DME equipment. And then in terms of, connecting flights or train transfers, or if your hotel is a bus, always have a plan B. Again, I talked about having flexibility and patience, and just, making sure that you have at least a backup plan for that. So these were some of the more recent, articles that I sort of found. I was a little shocked by some of the statistics here. And obviously COVID changed things. So the numbers on the left are actually much less than what it would be if COVID didn't happen. And then a recent article here was the New York Times. This gentleman talked about how embarrassing it was for him to travel, and especially because he needed to be adjusted or like carried to and from his wheelchair to like an aisle seat, or an aisle chair rather, and then to his actual seat. So that's why, part of the advice that I give you is that always having a set of instructions to tell them how to transfer you appropriately. So you don't feel like they're mismanaging you, like direct them in the same way. I don't know if you all had the same experience in the hospital, but when I take care of my spinal cord injury patients, we go through a mock trial of, my patients actually directing their nurses on how to turn them or how to transfer them. So it's the same thing. We want to make sure that they know how to take care of you. Okay. So how do you prepare your equipment for transport? I think this is one of the most anxiety provoking topics that I cover. So pre-travel preparations, I think the main thing is knowing your equipment backwards and forwards. Like examine all your travel equipment, your adaptive equipment, make sure that everything is properly functioning and that no pieces are, hanging loose. Make sure that your power and manual wheelchairs go through a safety check. And it's really important because, you want to make sure that everything's in working order before you go on a long trip, or even let's say a 3-day weekend, if you're starting slow, and just sort of feeling what it's like to go out for a vacation. Know which pieces can be replaced. So, we recommend having that done before leaving so that if something does break, you're not scrambling to figure out, oh my gosh, can I replace this? How expensive it is. It's a little scary to look into, but knowing is better than not knowing. And as I mentioned before, take pictures of all your travel equipment, especially your wheelchairs. This is super helpful because if the equipment sustains any damage during travel, then you have proof of what it looked like beforehand. And I think there's more likelihood that you will be supported in terms of getting payment for a broken wheelchair. Remove any loose parts and cover or wrap those parts. And when let's say if you're on a plane, you can take any of those parts with you on the plane. So if you take that stuff off, then they're less likely to get damaged as you're traveling. And you can put all that stuff in a bag and you can give it to the stewardess and they can put it in the little closet that's in most planes. And again, just make sure that you have like the measurements of your manual or power wheelchair handy. It's all that. It's almost like that's just as important as your medication list. Your medication list, your doctor's list, like the measurements of your assistive equipment should be part of that list that you carry with you at all times. And so part of that too is because then let's say you were in Paris and you wanted to call a restaurant and say, hey, can your restaurant handle my wheelchair? You can give them dimensions as part of your advocacy, right? And you can tell them, okay, well, I'm going to need a ramp, or I can pop a wheelie, if you just have, depending on the height of your step or your curb or whatnot. So, it's helpful to have objective measurements of what you have. Other things to consider, just remember all your durable medical equipment fly for free. So do not get duped and, or fooled into paying for that. Don't pack it with the rest of your, stuff, because that you will have to pay for if you're over like 50 pounds, but your durable medical equipment, they fly for free. So that includes your shower chairs, any transfer boards. There are actually shower chairs and commodes that can be that are specific for travel. And the manual actually goes through all of that stuff and provides you with links. So and it actually comes with a little suitcase already. So that can fly for free. We've already talked about writing written instructions on how to handle your equipment, and that includes for all of your DME. Make sure that you have face-to-face time with the individuals who are carrying your equipment. And if you're traveling with that power wheelchair, you want to stay as involved with the process. So you can ask for what they call like a support specialist. And you see that mostly in airlines or in airports. And you can actually stay with your chair. Or I'm sorry, you can actually tell them exactly what to do with your chair at every step of the process. We already talked about the batteries. Just make sure you know that's another thing that you want to have on your little information sheet along with the measurements. And also, if traveling outside the country, just make sure you know the electrical requirements. So, and then I think besides knowing, your rights, just troubleshoot, because that, if you go in and sort of, prepare ahead of time in terms of, oh, well, this part of my wheelchair could break, or that part of my wheelchair could break, or my cushion might end up having a hole. You can work through and troubleshoot those problems and know exactly what kind of an emergency kit you can keep handy. And again, ask your therapists and vendors for help. Ask us. This is what we're here for. And then booking your hotel. So I mentioned this earlier, be that annoying person that asks questions. Like, that's super important. Remember, you have to know yourself. And so the only way that they're going to be able to help you is if you know exactly what you need and you tell them, point by point, this is the space that I need to be able to maneuver myself around a room. This is the space if you need a Hoyer lift, this is the space I need. These are the measurements I need in a hotel room. Like, I would like to have a bed that has that does not have a base, that it's free, because a lot of the things that are happening now, a lot of hotels are changing their bed bases so that it's solid, and it's super annoying because a lot of my patients who need Hoyer lifts can't put their Hoyer lifts underneath the bed. Ask them if I have a Hoyer lift, or if I need that space underneath the bed. Or if I need the height of the bed adjusted, are you going to be able to do that for me? I need this height to be able to transfer successfully. The other thing too is, as you're asking these questions, leave a paper trail. Talk to the manager as often as possible, but follow that up with emails. Because it's very important that it's in writing. In medicine they say if you didn't document, it didn't happen. So it's the same thing for this case. So you will always have proof that you had that conversation. Again, ask for pictures. Ask for pictures of their accessible rooms, specifically their accessible rooms, not the fancy looking photos that they put on their website. Ask them to actually see it, like say, hey, can you FaceTime me, or can we do a really quick Zoom call so that you can show me what the room looks like. So, and ask about the rest of the hotel. I think a lot of people forget that, I had the same client or same patient I had who was a businessman. He would travel to some countries in South America, and apparently the elevators only stop at half floors, and he had a power wheelchair. So they had to carry his 300+ pound power wheelchair half of a staircase just to get to a floor, because how the elevator was, set up. But which I thought was insane, but they did it. They carried him. And part of it was because he's been going there for many years and they knew him, and they just had a system to help him, get up those steps. And like I said, if you're, let's say you want to go to the pool, ask about, if there's an accessible entrance into the pool, and ask if it works, because that's another problem. They'll say, oh yes, we do have it, but then it doesn't work. One of my friends actually had that happen to her. So, I think they tried to accommodate her as best as possible, but it's one thing to say it on the website that you have it, but it's another thing to make sure that it works. So those are just some examples, to think about. And again, speak to the manager over and over again. I always suggest, after you make your initial phone call and then the follow-up email, email them again or call them again a couple days before your trip to make sure they remember, that you had those conversations, because a lot of these rooms are not guaranteed. They'll say that to you, but I think if you're annoying enough, they'll save it for you. So again, it's one of those things where we just have to work through some of these challenges and obstacles. Okay. So planning for the outing itself, a lot of this is really about transportation, and it really could be a lecture on its own. So I'm just gonna really breeze through this section. And if you guys want like a whole lecture on that, again, we can talk about it. But really the biggest thing is knowing the restrictions, the security protocols, what services can they provide in terms of assistance, and what are the boarding protocols. So a lot of the time, like for example, now the airlines have actually changed their boarding protocols. Most people with disabilities or like with families with children, all that, they board first, but then they deplane last. So knowing that as well is going to be really important. Talk to the company, make your needs known, and ask. Again, it's a very similar theme that's sort of running through my entire talk here. And make sure that you have, verbal instructions on your equipment and on your person in terms of what to do during the security inspections, whether it's for your chair or for you. Most of the time they'll pat you down. You don't have to go through the machine. They'll ask somebody to come in and pat you down. But sometimes they forget that you can't get up from your chair, and they'll ask you to get up from your chair. That has actually happened to one of my friends. And so it's embarrassing, and it's humiliating, and they found it really degrading. And it's like they have to still, stand there and tell them, well, I can't do that. So what I actually like to say is like, have a piece of information or have a piece of paper that tells them exactly what you can and cannot do. So before even the pat down happens, you can give it to them. Or if you feel comfortable enough, just verbally tell it to them. Some of the other stuff we kind of talked about already, so I'm just going to move forward. And then for other things to consider, if you are booking in another city, for example, or even if you are doing a staycation, let's say in Cleveland, you want to choose the hotel that's closest to your preferred destinations. That really helps to mitigate some of the stresses that are involved with transporting yourself to and from places. And it also makes it easy for you to just be in one place. But a lot of people may not like to do that. So then I would say, okay, well, if you want to, stay in this really, really swanky hotel, but, you need to transport yourself to your, let's say concert venue or the restaurant that you want to go to, just make sure you call them ahead of time. Uber and Lyft are starting to have more accessible vehicles available. I feel like they're more available out in the West Coast. They have something called the Wave. I know there are some around the Cleveland area, but they're not as prolific yet. I think that's sort of that's coming. It's going to be something that we'll see more in the next few years. Again, ask for discounts. If you have a companion going with you, more likely than not, they'll have tickets available that might be discounted or for free. And I showed you some of the travel agencies or touring companies that are available for you guys. And then we're going to end with some of the community adventures. So this is actually the table that is in our manual. So, the OT that I work with, her name is Jess Balhorn. She wrote that part of the chapter. I'm very proud of her. So I just need to give her a shout out. But she really framed a community outing with the use of the 4 Ps. So plan, prioritize, pace yourself, and position yourself for success. So obviously planning, part of that is just identifying where you want to go. And a lot of the planning stage we kind of just talked about. We talked about, figuring out what the transportation looks like, making appointments ahead of time, determining, let's say if you wanted to go to the mall, making sure you know what time they're open and when they close. Write a list of items you want to buy, or a list of questions, that you want to ask. Here it says for a medical professional, but really could be for anybody. Make sure that you complete all your self-care tasks before you go, but also have, some emergency packs. It's your go bag. And Pam, I know when we talked, we did our little project, we talked about having a go bag. So it's something I really promote. And then prioritize, pick a day of the week when you can prioritize this outing over, other responsibilities. So you're free. So if something happens, it's not super stressful, you can be flexible. Try not to, do all sorts of activities on the same day of your outing, because what you want to do is really save as much energy as possible for your outing. And if you do want to run multiple errands, just make sure you prioritize the most important ones first. Because, if let's say you get tired by the end of the day, if you don't get to some of the more minor things, that's okay. And pace yourself. You don't want to be rushing through your community outings. Make sure that you have enough time between appointments, running errands. If you're at different locations, ensure that you have plenty of rest breaks, and you can avoid feeling that rushed. You don't want to feel rushed, and position yourself for success. Picture sort of the environment that you're going into, and again, even for, let's say, some doctors' offices are not accessible at all. I actually had one patient who said that her urologist office she couldn't get into. And so, again, that's a point of advocacy, that you could use. Call the location, ask how, you're going to be able to get into the building. And, again, a lot of this is really just about preparing yourself and making sure you ask the right questions. We kind of talked a lot about this. So, again, it's just prepare, and a lot of the community outings and staycation activities that we put in the manual, you can actually use, the questions that we put to book a hotel or book, an outing for, smaller activities. So if you just want to, dip your feet into the water a little bit, this is a good way to kind of trial that. So just some last words. Some of the stuff is sort of my, some of the stuff we've already talked about. Yeah, traveling for people with disabilities isn't spontaneous. It does take a lot of time, as you probably went through with me, during this lecture. A lot of it is just preparing yourself and making sure that you have everything that you need, and asking a lot of questions, backing it up with a paper trail. And really, the goal is for people with disabilities to get out into the community and travel by educating. We want to educate not just ourselves, but also the tourism industry and sort of this idea of travel preparedness. I mentioned creating points of advocacy, just the previous slide. If you see something that's just not working, speak up. And be part of the community that keeps on advocating for yourself and your colleagues. And collaborate with, the travel industry. That's something that, I think about all the time. And, I think it's entirely possible to create a world that's universally designed, and for everybody to be able to get around without any barriers. So, one of the projects that we actually, tried to, we were very successful on a small scale. We wanted to do it on a much bigger scale, but I wanted to get a lot of my patients out into the community. Pam was actually one of the, pilot users of this project, but we sponsored trips out to Cleveland, or, I think some people stayed in Canton or went to Akron. Someone else went to Columbus, where we gave them like a mini version of our manual, just, questions that they could ask to sort of book their travel and sort of experience what it feels like to go on a mini vacation around the Northeast Ohio area. So our goal is hopefully to do it again on a much larger scale, and maybe even create a manual, like a travel manual, a travel guide to Northeast Ohio for people with disabilities. So if that is something you guys are interested in and want to join, please let me know. I'm trying to figure out how to get funding for it right now. But that is something that, that's hopefully in the near future. So that's all I have. I know I talked a lot, but I'm very excited about what I do. I love what I do. I love traveling. I love traveling with all of you, and hopefully it's something that we can continue doing and hopefully change sort of the policies around travel and disability. So I'm here for any questions, so please let me know. Hey, Pam has a question, I think. Pam, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I was, sorry.
Mhm.
I was just curious, having been part of that test group there, how your presentation in Portugal went.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So, so I did present that, project in Portugal. It was actually received very well.
Good.
So I think I did have some potential collaborators. So that's why I'm saying I'm looking for other collaborators.
Yeah.
I just found out something interesting though. And I actually found out when I was at the Maximum Accessible Housing Office of Ohio that Northeast Ohio actually has the highest number of people with disabilities.
Really?
And ironically, and I'm, I trained at Metro. I worked at Cleveland Clinic for a little while. So obviously we have some major, hospital systems. But the individual I was speaking to said we also had the worst healthcare for people with disabilities. So, obviously, I think Northeast Ohio would be the best place to start like a project like what we did, Pam. And my passion is really the transition to home piece. So I am looking at travel with disability, but it's really community integration and how to successfully get you guys out to the community. And so that's why I'm looking for grant money to kind of restart that project because it was received so well.
Okay.
And I'm hoping, we might be able to do it abroad as well.
Oh, wow.
So that's like a few years down the line.
Yeah.
We got to start with the US first.
Right.
But yeah, it's I think it's really exciting. And I hope it's something that we can do, and actually create that guide for Northeast Ohio. It's going to take a few, I think, brainstorming sessions. If you guys are interested in doing that, please let me know. Did I put my contact information on I don't think, oh, I did. But actually, it's a different contact information that I think that's my old one. I use a different one. Meg has my email address, so she can always get that to you guys. Or actually, I'll put it in the chat. So if you guys are interested, please feel free to email me because it is an ongoing project. Hopefully that kind of inspired you guys to get out there. It might be super overwhelming because I feel like I threw a lot of stuff at you guys, but it is possible. So, and who knows, I'm actually speaking to another, actually she had a spinal cord injury. She lives out in New Mexico. But I would love to create like a travel agency for you guys.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun?
Right?
Yeah.
I think so too. So, I get excited about this stuff. Do you guys have any other questions for me? Oh, I see Jill with her hand raised.
Yeah, Julie and Jill both have questions.
Okay. All right. Julie, you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first.
Sure.
I'm loving what you're putting on the screen. Are you making a book? Are you going to publish a book or a manual or?
Yep. Yeah.
Now,
so
I'm not in Ohio. I'm an interloper on this group. Everybody knows. I'm in Wisconsin, as a matter of fact.
Oh, you are? I'm in Wisconsin right now. Where are you?
I'm in Milwaukee. Where are you?
No way. I'm in Wauwatosa right now.
Oh, I know Wauwatosa. Hello. I'm waving out my window. I see you over there.
Yeah. No, we should meet up. I put my email on there. So like I'm here for the next 3 weeks because I'm a locums doctor. So I travel and do rehab. Yeah. That's crazy. How exciting.
Okay. I've been disabled for many decades now, but I've noticed travel is harder as time goes on. Used to be easy. Now I'm scared to death because either you get attitude or like, again, about that hotel bed height. So when I saw what you had written there, that book, it's like, that's what I need. I would either have to write one myself and I wouldn't even think of half of the stuff, or I could buy a book, something like that you've written. So that was my question. Are you writing a manual? Is that something that will be on the market that people can buy?
Yes, actually the manual is already written. It's just, it's being published by the American Spinal Injury Association.
Okay.
So I sent my last edits, I think in early July. So I'm hopefully going to get some kind of feedback soon, before the end of August.
And how will we know?
So it's
little
actually
people.
going to be, I think they're actually going to post it online for free.
Oh,
So it'll be online for free. You guys don't have to pay for that. And
so
actually,
it won't be in print form?
I think they are going to do the print form. I'm not sure exactly how that is,
Yeah.
going to happen just yet. But I was told during the Asia conference back in May that they're going to put it online. So I will find out for you if they have,
Yeah.
the print.
I'm still old school book person. I like paper. I like turning pages.
Yeah.
And not only that, then you put it on your shelf. And then when you're planning a trip, oh, let me pull out this book.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Yeah.
was my question.
Okay.
You'd have at least one customer here.
Here's a few of those.
Enjoy being in Wisconsin and Milwaukee. I
Yes.
hope you have a good time here.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. All right, Jill, why don't you unmute yourself?
I think also joining with other organizations, particularly those that are involving our aging population, joining with the Spinal Cord Association, could join with some of the us older folks
Yes.
and really become a powerful force in changing the travel industry. I'm a member still of the Gray Panthers, a little known group, but I would suggest to them that we join forces. And,
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
Do you want to be my connection, Jill?
Oh, honey, of course. I'm a great connection. Yeah, sure. I mean, I can start with the Gray Panthers, and that they're in the middle of doing some other very policy kinds of things. But I think this is a policy thing that we ought to take on.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
I'm still a member of the board of directors, even though I don't live in New York anymore.
Okay. Yeah, actually, there's a lot of movement in the East Coast to change some of the public transportation systems, like the subway in New York.
Oh yeah.
I'm actually from Chicago, but I'm really a New Yorker at heart, and transplanted to Cleveland. But yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of the work that they're going to do. I think there's also work being done in Jersey and Philly. So New York is notoriously very difficult to manage in a wheelchair, especially if you want to take the public transportation.
Well, wait. I know the woman who stood in front of the buses and in her wheelchair, and subsequently the policy changed, and there's all the buses are accessible to handicapped people. I'm her friend, so.
Right.
There's ways to change things like that.
Where are you in Ohio?
I'm in Cleveland.
Oh, you
but
are in Cleveland. Okay.
Yeah, my heart's in New York. I was a New Yorker for 50 years. So.
Same. Same. Well, when I go back to Cleveland, we'll have to meet up and we can discuss collaborations.
I would love to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll get your email or your contact information. I'll send you mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions? And it's my pleasure, of course, to do. I so thank you. I love doing this stuff. So I see you all as my colleagues and future collaborators.